Yeah.
Good evening. It is 5:30, so we're going to call this meeting to order. Remind you to turn your cell phones to silent or vibrate, which I better do. And please stand and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Chris, would you take the roll, please?
Councilmember Berg.
Here.
Councilmember Dalby.
Here.
Councilmember Rowe.
Here.
Councilmember Stevens.
Here.
Councilmember Myers.
Here.
Mayor Lazio.
Here.
Approval of items on the consent agenda. Minutes from special meeting number 17 on May 29th, 2020, and regular meeting number 18 on June 2nd, 2020, and special meeting number 19 on June 9th, 2020, as presented. Acknowledgement of May financial report and payment of bills is submitted by the Finance Department. Recommend reappointment of William Hanson to the Cemetery Board of Trustees, term to expire 7/1/2027, and Chuck Manson to the Ottumwa Waterworks Board of Trustees, term to expire 7/22/2026. Approve the appointment of Tyler Phillips to the position of Equipment Operator, Sewer Maintenance Department, effective June 29th, 2020. Approve the appointment of Tina Yeagers to the position of Accountant in the Finance Department, effective on or about July 6, 2020. Approve the purchase of a Batwing Flex Finishing Grooming Mower from Sinclair Implement for $15,100 for Water Pollution Control Facility, fiscal year 2021. Resolution number 135, 2020, setting July 7th, 2020 as the date of a public hearing on the disposition of city-owned property located at 529 Appanus. Resolution number 143, 2020, approving the contract, bonds, and certificate of insurance for the 2020 asphalt street repair program. Resolution number 144, 2020, approving the contract, bonds, and certificate of insurance for the 2020 chip seal program. Resolution number 145, 2020, approving the contract, bonds, and certificate of insurance for the 2020 sanitary utility access program. Resolution number 146, 2020, approving the contract, bond, and certificate of insurance for the 2020 sidewalk drop and detectable warning installation program. Resolution number 147, 2020, approving the contract, bonds, and certificate of insurance for the 2020 street crack and seal program. Resolution number 150, 2020, approving the Wapello County City of Ottumwa Law Enforcement Center maintenance budget for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021. Resolution number 151, 2020, accepting the work as final and complete and approving the final pay request for the building number 34 re-roofing project at the Ottumwa Regional Airport. Resolution number 152, 2020, providing for the financial support of the Area 15 Regional Planning Commission for fiscal year 2021. Cigarette permit applications for Dollar General number 7179 at 721 North Quincy Avenue, Dollar General number 2898 at 921 East Main Street, Hy-Vee Incorporated doing business as Hy-Vee number 2 C Store at 2547 North Court, Hy-Vee Incorporated doing business as Hy-Vee number 2 at 2453 North Court, Hy-Vee Incorporated doing business as Hy-Vee Drugstore at 1140 North Jefferson Street, Hy-Vee Incorporated doing business as Hy-Vee number 1 at 1025 North Quincy, Hy-Vee Incorporated doing business as Hy-Vee number 1 Gas at 1027 North Quincy, Walmart Incorporated doing business as Walmart number 1285 at 1940 Venture Drive, Smoke and Joe's Tobacco and Liquor Outlet number 5 at 1115 Albia Road, Fine Liquor and Tobacco at 821B Albia Road, Iowa Liquor and Tobacco at 1021 East Main Street, and Ottumwa Grocery LLC at 129 East 2nd Street. Beer and/or liquor applications for Yesway Store number 112, 2508 North Court, Yesway Store number 113 at 534 Church Street, Yesway Store number 114 at 502 West 2nd, Yesway Store number 130 at 1317 East Mary Street, Jade Palace at 1404 Sherwood, Happy Joe's Pizza at 315 Church Street, Mike's Pizza and Steakhouse at 2517 Northgate Street. All applications pending final inspections.
Is there a motion for the consent agenda?
Move the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Councilmember Berg,
Abstain.
Councilmember Dalby,
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe,
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens,
Yes.
Councilmember Myers.
Yes.
All right, we need a motion for the approval of tonight's agenda. Is there such a motion?
So moved. Second.
Thank you.
Councilmember Berg,
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby,
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe,
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens,
Yes.
Councilmember Myers.
Yes.
Item D is our administrator's report to the council, so I'll call on Mr. Rath to give his update.
Thank you, Your Honor. Okay, so we're still in the land of COVID, so I just want to give a brief update on where things stand in regards to that. Some good news, the beach is scheduled to open within the confines of the current 50% and that. You'll see some of the tables have been pushed aside, some of the benches to sit on, they have been moved away to provide for the safe distance. So we do ask that people still maintain their safe distancing, and that if you feel safe and wanting to, that you go and enjoy the beach Ottumwa. City Hall is still scheduled to open next week, Monday, the 22nd. We're continuing to progress through that and get things set for a reopen of City Hall. And then lastly, we have not, as a city, heard anything on the front of revenue reimbursements from state or federal funding. And so looking for permission from City Council, if it would be the city's stance to reach out to state and federal legislators and other entities that it would be the city's position that we are looking for any kind of revenue reimbursement aid to that regard. And if that is the general consent, then we proceed to reaching out, signing on to letters of support from the different agencies that are going down that path. Okay, seeing all head nods, we'll proceed down that path.
Very good.
Okay. I've got a couple more things on here, but at the moment, I guess I'll turn it over to Andy Wartenberg from the Convention Visitors Bureau for a brief update. And just for the council and the public, we're coming to the end of the current agreement, but we're in process to get a new agreement, updated agreement very soon. So just keep you updated on that.
Thank you, Phil.
Yep.
Good evening, everybody. I wanted to give you a brief update on a marketing plan we put together when the pandemic hit. Next slide, please. But first, I wanted to just briefly go through some of the numbers. Thank you. Right. Okay. This is basically just to give you an idea of what we're looking at in terms of hotel occupancy. You can see our month comparison. The national average is 29%. See, the state is about 27%. We're doing a little bit better. And you can see what we got from the state in Q3 of 19 as opposed to 20. So it's just about a $40,000 drop. Obviously, this is affecting hotel properties and CVBs throughout the state, throughout the country, throughout the world, really. We did some numbers, crunched some numbers in consultation with Kayla, basically trying to project what we might lose in terms of revenue in each quarter. And obviously, these are projections and guesses right there. And we are projecting a loss in revenue from the hotel motel tax in 2021 of about $146,000. Basically, you see Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, what we project it's going to be. Now, of course, these numbers are going to change depending on whether there's a second outbreak, whether there's a vaccine or not. This is, folks, there's no playbook for this, really. So this is really our best guess right now. So what are we going to do? What we did was, starting in April, we implemented a three-phase marketing program. Basically, phase one is when we first were sent home, for lack of a better word. We did what was called the Hometown Heroes campaign. And we thought it would be a good idea to give people in the community something to smile about. And we basically, sort of highlighted folks that are going above and beyond the community. About the second week of May, we switched into the phase two, which was basically what a lot of CVBs did, was basically, we know you can't travel yet, but when you can, we're ready for you. Okay, we miss you, see you soon. We sort of flooded our social media channels with this. And again, phase three, which we rolled out on June 1st. And again, I want to emphasize, when you do a marketing campaign, you basically design the campaign with the assumption that market conditions are going to remain somewhat stable during the time of the campaign. And as I said, there's no playbook for this. So I like to call it a flex campaign, which means that if we have to change it, we will. But let me just go through real quick what we're doing. The key to this is that, believe it or not, there are certain things that selling points that we can do in the wake of the pandemic. Stay vacations really refers to people in Iowa that want to get out and travel and stay for a night or two. We're also emphasizing ease of travel. A lot of people do not want to get on an airplane. Great places, open spaces. We're emphasizing the fact that we are not in an open cluster. Number 4, I think, is very important, is affordability. The price elasticity of travel is going to increase dramatically. Folks don't have so much money. We are, for lack of a better word, we're a cheap date. We are very affordable. And obviously, we're emphasizing stay safe measures at our restaurants, our venues. We've been working with Scott and the Bridgeview team a lot on making sure we communicate that. So what we're doing for the leisure side first is basically each week we're doing a different email blast. We're talk about our hotels, attractions, restaurant, recreation, cultural, and events. We're complementing that with, on Facebook, what we're doing is we're featuring local businesses for 2 reasons. We want to obviously help the businesses get going, but let people know, A, we're open for business, and B, here's the measures we've put in place right there. And obviously, this will be for the visitors in the community. Now, on Instagram, what we're doing over 6 weeks is each weekend, we're doing a weekend itinerary. Basically, it's, okay, you live in Chicago, you live in Minneapolis, here's what you can do from Friday to Sunday in Ottumwa. We started that 2 weeks ago. And so that's basically what we're doing on the leisure side. On the group side, has everyone seen the video we did on the groups? I'll save time, I won't run it again. So obviously the idea behind that group's video was, instead of doing just a couple minutes of B-roll, what we wanted to do was kind of tell a story. And that's why we did it as if the camera was an attendee. Now we've embedded that on our website, on meetingpages.com. That's going to go in our RFPs. And very happy to say that was all done locally. We were able to do the whole thing for $2,500. So I want to publicly thank everybody in the community to help us get that done. Email blasts. Again, this we're going to roll out in about a month. The meeting planning industry right now is so much in flux. So many conferences are going virtual. I mean, we've lost a few conferences. We've been able to keep some events. But again, we're going to emphasize those messaging points with meetings and conferences, weddings, reunions, and sporting events right there. As we open up, we'll emphasize that. What we're doing on our social media channels for the groups, we're doing what we call a virtual site inspection. Basically, each day, we're taking the meeting planners on a virtual tour of one attribute of why they should come to Ottumwa and have their event here. Be it Bridgeview Center, be it the Hay Barn, be it a restaurant, be it a group activity, things like that. And again, we're going to start that in parallel with our email blast campaign. Okay. Also, we rolled out this week actually an influencer campaign, and basically an influencer campaign is where you pay or inspire people to post things about your destination on social media channels. One of the problems is when you pay influencers, A, it's extremely expensive, and B, they're like, well, I have 50,000 followers. You actually have no control over what kind of content they're writing. Same with if you're using to inspire influencers, you're only going to get local. So what we did was we're incentivizing people to post on 3 topics: why I love Ottumwa, my favorite restaurant in Ottumwa, my favorite activity in Ottumwa, and they're going to have like 6 or 7 different tags for each post. And what we're going to do is award $500 to a prize to one in each category. Doesn't seem like a lot, but trust me, travel writers and bloggers, they're hurting as well right now. We have see our judging criteria right there. So the total cost is $1,500, and I'd like to acknowledge Legacy Foundation, who's going to finance that for us right there. So that's going out. That's starting actually this week. Almost done. Thank you. Also, we're doing some joint marketing with other areas. Just 2 things I'll highlight. We are doing a project with the CVBs in Oskaloosa and Pella, and with the Midwest Travel Network called Road Trip Southeast Iowa. That's October 1st to the 3rd, 2020. As of right now, we're still a go with that. Basically, it's going to feature one city each day, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. It's going to dovetail with our events. And we have the entire Midwest Travel Network behind us promoting this. That is the same weekend. We have Oktoberfest and hopefully Galaxy of Gaming as well. So we're moving forward with that. And finally, the CVB is part of a organization called Iowa Destination Marketing Alliance. That is basically an organization of Iowa CVBs, and we've been meeting once a week, and we are doing a joint marketing plan, a rollout day. You can see basically print, digital, social media, and it's all going to be driven to a landing page hosted by Travel Iowa. And plus, there's a sponsorship levels for this. We were able to get $135,000 from Gannett, which is Des Moines Register, really RAGBRAI. So, again, members of the council, this is our best guess of what we can do right now. We have to be very aggressive. I will tell you, if things change for the better or the worse, we'll adjust appropriately. So I just wanted to give you an update, an idea of what we're doing at the CVB office, and take any questions anybody has, comments.
Any questions or comments?
Councilman?
Yes. Well, Andy, I want to thank you. I know my colleagues probably won't follow my statement, but I not only appreciate what you've done on Facebook, and you mentioned monthly themes and restaurants and so forth, but I also follow you on Instagram. And again, you're so positive, and you choose the right types of things, and you're promoting everything and everybody. And I really do.
You have to be right now. I mean, there's, positivity doesn't cost anything. So there you go. Thank you, Councilman. Okay.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, moving on, an update on Ottumwa Transit Authority transition to Region 1015. So just a quick update. The July 1st date is approaching quickly. We're a couple weeks away. And just wanted to assure the public that the buses should continue to run. That if you had purchased coins or still have coins, tokens, I guess or passes, those are being honored. So any tickets, coins, all those are still being accepted, and we're going to keep the same number that you have for OTA. So you can call either the OTA number or Region 1015 to get the questions answered on rides. We'll be working on getting the future passes and tokens sold everywhere except City Hall would be the only difference to that. So you'll be able to get those at Region 1015. And they're working to maintain those contacts at Hy-Vee, and I believe Walmart was another location. So we're looking for as seamless as a transition as possible to make it as easy for the public as possible. And then lastly, the comprehensive plan open house is scheduled for June 25th. That'll be located at the Bridgeview Center, and that'll be from 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock p.m. at Bridgeview Center on June 25th. So there will be displays spread out through the building, so you'll be able to meander through, maintain social distancing, and staff should be on hand to answer any questions or to take any comments that people may have as part of that continuation of the draft process. And then there will also be access online. Is it Ottumwa.com?
Yes.
Ottumwa.com. And you can go there as well to post any comments or ask questions about the plan.
Yes, there's a button there.
Okay, there's a button you can click to make those comments. All right, thank you.
Any questions for Phil? Okay, thank you. Item E is a chance for anybody in the audience wants to comment about anything on tonight's agenda. Is there anybody that wants to speak? Okay, we'll move on. Item F. Chris?
Bid report to reject bids received on the 2020 catch basin replacement program. Recommendation, reject bids received.
Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
City Engineer Dwight, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. This is our annual catch basin program, and this involves reconstruction and raising catch basin wells, adding new grates as indicated on the plans and specifications. The basins are located at various streets throughout the city of Ottumwa. 4 sets of plans were either sent out or downloaded from the city's website, and 1 bid was received. The bid was significantly higher than the engineer's opinion of cost of $48,280. Staff is recommending rejection of the bid.
Any questions for Dwight? Okay, hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Berg,
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby,
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe,
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens,
Yes.
Councilmember Myers.
Yes.
Thank you.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the status of funded activities for the Main Street Green Infrastructure CDBG project in the city of Ottumwa, Iowa.
Good evening, Kevin. This is a public hearing. You have the floor.
Thank you, Your Honor. The Honorable Bradley Grief, the Senior Planner for our Area 15 RPC, will update the city now on the Main Street Green Infrastructure Project occurring on the 100 through 300 blocks of East Main Street. This update is a CDBG program requirement.
Okay.
Brad, thanks for coming.
All right, good evening, everybody. Give you a real quick update here on what we're doing with the CDBG project that we all are very familiar with, I'm sure. Okay. There we go. So the status of funded activities public hearing is a requirement that we have to do around 50% of billing to release the second half of our CDBG funding. Has to have a review of all the stuff I'm going to tell you here. Again, we applied for 2 CDBGs back in 2018. We got the Community Facilities Award. Those were both $800,000 applications. So we got one of those. We qualified for those CDBG funds through what they call the low to moderate income benefit. At the time of the application, that IEDA they give us the census information that we based our numbers off of. We were about 52% LMI. They've updated the data since then, and we've actually gone up a little bit in their estimated low to moderate income. So just one of those ways that we qualify for the funds that a lot of communities around the state don't qualify because we have a lower community-wide income. Try to go back to the, I'm not going to go through all of this, but this project really came about through kind of the comprehensive planning process back when I was 10 years old, apparently. We've discussed streetscapes improvements downtown, various sizes and magnitudes. Since 1995 was when the public input was done for that process. So this is something that's been a long time coming. We finally got some designs that were in kind of a workable form back in 2015. Again, this was another open house public hearing, or not public hearing, but an open discussion, how these designs all came about. And then kind of the rest of the story, we released a revised vision plan. We designed, did the development of the designs in May through December of 2017. Then you'll remember we had that Better Block program where we kind of put some of this, the concepts on the street for a weekend. Had a lot of fun downtown. You can see that up there in the top and the bottom, kind of the morning and then the evening. So then we went through and actually went through the application process in July or January. We got the award in July. And then a year later, we started construction. And here a year later, we're about 50% build. That was as of May 1st before they started doing all that concrete down there. So I'm expecting another build here in the next week or so, and I'm sure we'll be closer to 60, 65%. And you'll probably notice that they did quite a bit of work over the last day, day and a half. This is where we were hoping to be at the end of last week before that monsoon hit us, but such is life. So here's kind of a real quick, this is not technical. This is my estimate based on what I see and what we know, or what we're doing in the plant, or what I see in the plans. You can see we're about 90% complete on the 300 block. I only put 90% because all the concrete's done, everything, the electrical, all that stuff's done. We just need to get the bioswale and vegetation planted, and that's not going to happen until about August, I think, is when they said the warranty period opens back up for planting. So that's why it doesn't look sexy down there right now. But I tell you what, it's going to look really good here in about 3 months. So what we're doing throughout the whole project, full depth, full width reconstruction, we have almost all the water mains done on the 3 blocks. Some of the stuff is over 100 years old. We tore up trolley tracks there in the 300 and part of the 200 block that were installed in the 1880s. So that's how long some of this stuff's been under there. We're going to get some really cool, innovative, projects like the bioswales, permeable pavement. They're putting a lot of this stuff all over the country. Dubuque's all in on this, and hopefully we can continue kind of following their lead. The other thing that I really like is that we're getting a more pedestrian oriented downtown. You'll remember Main Street and 2nd Street used to be the highways through town. The highways bypasses are on the south side of the river now. And it's time to turn this back into a place for people rather than a place for cars. So that's what we're doing. We're going to give you benches, bike racks, and trash cans so people don't have to throw stuff on the ground anymore. A lot of funding partners in this. We got $800,000 again from the Community Development Block Grant, IDA. We did apply for a $55,000 and got $55,000 from the Iowa Department of Agriculture and Land Stewardship, the Urban Water Quality Initiative Program. The city's kicking in money, as well as Ottumwa Waterworks is paying for their water main work. And then Legacy Foundation's paying for some of the other creature features, things like that. Genus did all the design, and they're doing some of the construction oversight for that side of things. Garden up in Oskaloosa is doing the engineering and surveying oversight. Colby's been really great to work with, so appreciate him letting me bug him all the time. Main Street Ottumwa's been doing a lot of positive, like you said, positive imaging campaigns. They've been talking, Fred's gone around and talked to every business owner multiple times. And he's just really the boots on the ground guy that's kind of helping massage the project along. I wrote the grant and we've been helping with the administrative side. And then again, the downtown property owners, building owners, employees, residents, everybody that comes and visits downtown, we thank you for your patience. It'll all be over soon. You can see kind of where we are in the budgeting situation. Portson out of Dubuque was the contractor that was selected. They were the only bid, but the engineering department, waterworks, and the designers went through their bid line by line, and they said, this was a reasonable amount. So again, construction began in July last year, and they're expected to be done here in the fall of 2020. They're pretty close to on schedule. They're a little ahead in some areas, a little behind in areas. So all in all, they're about where they're supposed to be. There have only been 5 construction change orders that I've gotten so far for a total of $58,000, which for not knowing what's under those 100-year-old streets, that's not too bad so far. Again, Portson, you can see, is billed about 45% of their contract. We've billed about 94% of ours, and we'll be working for free here about next month. So some comparison photos. You can see back in December what it looked like in 2018, and then this is what it looked like this morning. These will be probably online, won't they? Maybe. So if you want to look at them, otherwise, Main Street Ottumwa can throw some of these up online as well. So that's looking up Jefferson Street, or looking up Main from Jefferson. There's a top-down view of a 300 block. You can see that mid-block crosswalk in there where the bioswale is going to go. They're actually going to tear out a little bit of concrete that they put there temporarily for the winter and put permeable pavers across the crosswalk. That Green Street intersection is going to get permeable all through the intersection itself. It's kind of an interesting thing that we're trying out. The state and folks like that said, hey, you should give this a try, and so that's what we're doing. And that's why they gave us $800,000. Again, nice bump out to make the crosswalks a shorter distance to get across the street. It slows cars down because, again, this isn't a highway. This is a street for people to go shopping and sit outside on sidewalk cafes, which I know Appaloosa Rapids is getting ready to put theirs out. And thanks, Kevin, for helping us do that process. And this is why I like to take pictures when it's cloudy outside, because you can't really see with the shadows. But again, this was about 45 minutes ago. Looking up, they just got one little corner there, and then they've got all of the sidewalks on both sides of the street from the mid-block all the way down paved in the last 2 days. They're going to start the mid-block. You can kind of see it up there. And come back and pave this direction so that they can start hopefully in the next 2 to 3 weeks on actually putting those intersections in, or this intersection in. And there's a top down from the Green Street. You can see how really awful that pavement was to begin with. I mean, it kind of looked like gravel in places. And again, it's just going to be nicer for our folks to walk and do business down here. I think that's it. Yeah.
Any questions for Brad? Any comments? Pleased with the progress they're making, and it's going to be a great project when it's all completed, and we hope we'll be done by the end of this year.
I know I'm ready for it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Brad.
Close close the public hearing.
Move to
We'll
close.
need a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Was there
Second.
anybody here to speak?
Is there anybody that wanted to speak before we close the public hearing?
Oh, something else. Okay.
Okay. I have a motion to close public. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Berg,
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby,
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe,
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens,
Yes.
Councilmember Myers.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want me to read that?
No.
Okay. This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing approving the plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimated cost for the rebid of water pollution control facility final clarifier sandblasting primer and painting project.
And again, Dwight Dolman, City Engineer.
This project consists of sandblasting, priming, and painting of the bridge and structure, along with the coating of the perimeter effluent trough for the final clarifiers at the water pollution control facility. A base bid will be received for the north final clarifier with an alternate bid for the south final clarifier. The project was previously bid with 2 bids received on April 29th, 2020. Both bids were substantially higher than the engineer's opinion of cost. City Council rejected the bids at the council meeting on June 2nd, 2020. Bids will be received and opened by the City of Ottumwa on July 1st, 2020. The bid report and bid award recommendation will be presented at the City Council meeting on July 7th, 2020. Construction on this project is expected to commence on or about August 1st, 2020, and shall be substantially completed on or before September 30th, 2020. The engineer's opinion of cost for the base bid is $50,000. For the alternate bid, $50,000.
This is a public hearing. If there's anyone here that wants to address this item. Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So move.
Second.
Thank you.
Councilmember Berg,
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby,
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe,
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens,
Yes.
Councilmember Myers.
Yes.
Resolution number 131, 2020, approving the plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimated cost for the rebid of water pollution control facility final clarifier sandblasting primer and painting project. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 131, 2020.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented, Your Honor. Second.
Thank you. Any questions for Dwight? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Berg,
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby,
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe,
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens,
Yes.
Councilmember Myers.
Yes.
Thank you, Dwight.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the proposed amendment to the fiscal year 20 city budget.
Good evening, Kayla. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The council is required to hold a public hearing on the proposed city amendment prior to adoption of the amended budget for fiscal year 2020. The budget is amended according to the attached summary. This amendment is not an increase to the property tax levy. Usually, this amendment has been presented mostly for the changes in expenses that have occurred during the fiscal year. So that way, when we close our year end, our expenses are not overstated. This year, we have also included some revenue changes that we thought could occur because our revenue losses from COVID-19. So at this time, if you guys have any questions for me, I can answer those. But again, this is a typical amendment that is brought forth on an annual basis.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who wants to address this item? Okay. Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Berg,
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby,
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe,
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens,
Yes.
Councilmember Myers.
Yes.
Resolution 139, 2020, amending the annual budget for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2020. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 139, 2020.
Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Any questions for Kayla? This was published in the Courier.
Yes, it was.
Thank you. Okay.
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens,
Yes.
Councilmember Myers.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Resolution number 140, 2020, authorizing solicitation of bids for non-commercial trash, recyclables, bulky items, and yard waste collection within the city of Ottumwa, Iowa, beginning July 4th, 2021. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 140, 2020.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Kevin Flanagan, Planning Director, good evening.
Thank you, Your Honor. The city contracts for a collection of non-commercial solid waste, recyclables, bulky items, and yard waste for customers in dwellings of 4 units or less. The current contract expires July 3rd, 2021. If approved by the City Council, the bid documents that we have given council will be released June 17th, 2020, or shortly thereafter. A group of city staff, administration, and council member representatives reviewed our current contract over a few different meetings of our KB affiliate and internal meetings, and created documents using comments received from the last recycling survey that we performed. I think we had, correct me if I'm wrong, 401. Holly, was it 401?
It was over 400 survey responses for, trash and recycling.
Yeah, so we had a pretty good response from that. I think all things considered for those types of surveys. We made a number of changes to the contract. I'm going to go through just a few of those changes, just because. We are requiring contractors to provide an annual citywide cleanup event that they will, of course, be covering. Require contractors to implement a process so that phone calls during regular business hours are answered by an individual, not an answering machine, so that we get a little bit better response there. Change collection time start dates or times from 4 a.m. No earlier than to 6 a.m., except in cases of heat index of 105 degrees or more, when those start times would then be 5 a.m. So there's an adjustment there from 4 to 6. Yard waste will be collected year-round instead of seasonally. Require contractors to maintain a written or electronic log of customer contacts and provide them to the city monthly. So this just allows us, it gives us ability to kind of track what kind of responses that we're getting, complaints that we're getting from our citizens. Require collection containers to be returned to their original place and position after collection without blocking driveways or other access points used by those private citizens. And we are inserting language in that the city may issue civil notices of violation or municipal citations for actions such as storing containers, the taking of recyclables by workers or others, leaving trash and recycling scattered after collection, and the like. And by this, we're referring to our actual contract employees, as well as citizens, obviously, but also our contract employees, which is a pretty specific distinction. Require no cost replacement of recycling carts and trash carts. Allow awarding of a 5-year contract extension based on certain circumstances. Now, part of those circumstances will include that the city will survey customers, citizens every 2 years as to their satisfaction with the collection program as it is at that time. Results of the surveys will be a part used in determining whether a 5-year contract extension will be awarded. So a lot of different variables will be considered there for an awarding of a potential 5-year extension, but the measure of the satisfaction of our public will be one of those intrinsically. So that's just a little bit of that. June 16th, 2020, ideally we'd be approving and releasing our RFP around June 17th or shortly thereafter. July 9th, we would be having a pre-proposal conference with interested bidders. That way we're able to communicate with them, kind of hear some of their feedback from what they feel about the RFP and the like. Bids would be due to our city clerk by close of business hours, August 25th. So that would be at 4:30. September the 2nd, we would interview chosen contractors. So perhaps we have 3-4 contractors. We might narrow that down to 3, or maybe we had 5. We narrowed it down to 3, maybe 2 that we're going to interview. We'll have to make that decision at that time after, of course, a great extensive review on the apps that we receive. September 15th, City Council will award the contract, ideally, September 15th, 2020. And again, we would pick up collection July in 21. So any questions that anybody may have, I'd be glad to entreat that.
I noticed One of the complaints that I got the most is about the garbage leaking out of the back of the truck and making a mess on the street. Smelled terrible. And I've had that complaint numerous times. I think there should be something in there that they either have to clean it up or keep the trucks in good enough repair that this doesn't happen. Also, hydraulic oil leaks. That's another one that should be addressed. And another complaint I got was the appearance of the equipment. I think it should be washed every week or so. And there's three things that I think should be included in that.
Yeah, I would say to that, and I think those are all very good points. One instance there is that we did replace, we were getting some measure of complaints, as you say, from effluent, coming on the stop and go, especially as hilly as our city is. Some of that happening too on the takeoff a little bit more than the stop, right? But all the baffles on the trucks were replaced by the contractor, and it did help with that. But that is something that just shouldn't be happening exactly. And leaks, keeping equipment in good repair and good presentation, absolutely. I'll take another look at that language. Maybe we need a little bit more in there about that.
Thank you.
I was gonna say, I know we included language about that because of the feedback from citizens in the survey. There's definitely language in there, but make sure that it's as solid as it needs to be.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments for Kevin?
Yes, I have several. First of all, I'll just state again, it's just my opinion, but again, the procedure that was used to have this RFP put before us, I'm not at all pleased with that procedure. I think for a council person to be with staff, it reminds me of the problems we had with transit, and we had two council people on that apparently were speaking for the rest of us. And I think any time policy is developed, when we actually go to policy, it's supposed to be by the full council. So I hope in the future we'd be a little more careful as far as including council, or if we do all council have the option of possibly serving on that? Now, that aside, then there are several other things. I was really curious about what the percentage of the surveys were turned in. And if you're telling me 400 out of how many thousand customers turned those in, that sounds like a good number. Other things in this, which again, I wish it had come to us as just an introduction to the council, and we would have had a chance to ask questions and possibly some more development. Because one of the things that just really jumps at me is we are going to possibly write civil citations to this company, whoever, for not putting the containers back in the right place, various other. We don't even enforce cars parked in front yards, or we don't have the capability of doing those kinds of things. And yet now we're going to add another one that if this person doesn't get the containers in exactly the right spot, they could serve a citation. I'm also curious about when we've had complaints, have we let Kevin, the present hauler, have we let the present business know about those complaints?
Yes, very regularly. Well, I'll catch up with you. When it comes to council representation, very early on in the process where we're looking at the RFP, I had reached out to Councilmember Berg to possibly serve, and also had spoke with Councilmember Stevens about possibly looking at this RFP in our KEB meetings with Ottumwa and they were engaging in, of course, we were engaging there and putting out a survey. Solid waste issues, as you know, are our focus in there. And so we did discuss it broadly in there with a couple of council people who had an interest in the issue, the solid waste issues. I think you're right in so many respects. Maybe we should have, on an interim level, brought it back and maybe said, here's where we are so far. It was kind of our assumption and on my part, maybe that was a hasty assumption, and I should have polled a little more, that council had kind of talked, and that our two representatives that were kind of discussing with solid waste issues were the ones who were like, yes, I'm interested, and the other members were not. In the future, I'll make sure and poll a little harder about that, but you do want to have council membership on these RFPs on a recommend 1 or 2 members. Of course, we wish we could have 3, but we would have to have public. We can't have private administration meetings, in other words. And a lot of the discussion that goes on in these private admin meetings about RFPs or otherwise, those discussions aren't ready for public consumption. So obviously, you want to get a product that is ready to go before the public. But I take that critique in a real and serious way. And I think, I'll make sure and go a little further in finding out, making sure and vetting our council representatives for different RFP formations in the future.
If I may, let me interrupt you just a second, because that still is part of my concern. Probably 4 out of the 5 belong to Make Ottumwa Shine. I was on the initial group back then. I may not be as involved, but in this type of a situation, I represent, I like to think we all do, but I represent our local businesses. And so when the present business that we gave them a contract for 5 years, and then we renewed it for another 5. So they've worked with us for 10 years. They pay taxes, they hire local people. It's a local business. And so I wanted to make sure, if I were a representative, that they, first of all, have been on a regular basis informed of concerns of a good percentage of citizens. And then I want to jump to another one. I'm going to skip around here on you, Kevin, but
No, it's fine.
Another one that was mentioned was a one day Clean Ottumwa Day. And it's my understanding that, in fact, that discussion has been with our present carrier, but their question was, okay, but if we have 30, 50 loads of materials to take to the landfill, who's going to pay that? And there wasn't an answer given. So another part of my big question, and then I'll be quiet, is how much research did your staff and group do so that when you wrote this list, you can only start at 6 in the morning because some people get disturbed at 4. You can only start at 6. And by the way, the landfill closes at 4. So 6 to 4, and if it's 105 degrees, we'll let you start at 5. So I wondered if you did any research on all of these things that are listed here to any other persons, any other businesses that might look at this and say, yeah, we'd be glad to do all of these. It'll just cost you twice as much. Did you look at the cost factor at all?
Okay, let's take them a little bit at a time. We talked about council rep, but complaint process. I get complaints a lot, you can imagine. I get complaints calls. Janice Bain gets complaint calls.
Yes.
Complaint calls come to our city clerk, and she sends them up to us as soon as she gets them. The minute we get complaints, of course, my first action is, and Janice reports to me those complaints the same as Chris does. And so I call my counterpart with the company, and we talk over the phone pretty much immediately after we get the complaints. I have not had any issues getting a hold of him ever. And it happens fast. We talk. We know each other quite well at this point. We've known each other for about 4 years. Those complaints are always answered in a fashion that I find to be satisfactory. And in some cases can be expedited to need. I can say that. There have been instances where I've called our company's representative on the weekends. I called him Saturday, and we had about a 30-minute discussion of a couple of different issues. Now, 10 or 15 minutes, being the Southerner I am, the 10 or 15 minutes of that conversation were, what are you doing right now at home? But for 15 minutes, we were discussing that issue. I hung up the phone. That issue was solved within 20 minutes. And so, I can say that our process is fairly fluid when it comes to complaints. Do we get complaints? Yes, we do. We get a tremendous amount of complaints. We're a city of about 26,000 folks. And I can tell you that the questions, the complaints that we get, the inquiries that we get are no different than those that I've gotten in any other community. They're probably no different than anyone in my position gets around this nation in their own communities. Some of those complaints are a little more frequent, I feel like, than in other communities. Each community in and of itself has quirks, right? It's going to have its own character and its own issues with different types of service provision. As in the conversation Saturday when we were talking, I think I told my contractor even that I feel like that we as a city have not done as much as we could with outreach, education of our own citizenry and how to help us perform these services. And that's something that is a little bit old fashioned, but I think it works. And so that's some of the things that we're looking at doing doing in the future going forward. So I'm satisfied with what has been that response, and I appreciate what our company does for us out there. It's a tough service provision. I think most people think that, but they don't. There's knowing the facts and there's knowing the truth. And the truth of it is there's really not a service provision the city does that's really that is physically oriented like that in a public works manner that's tougher on the people doing it or the machines that are doing it. Solid waste is a pretty harsh environment all the way around. But I can say in a conversation with our contractor that they did feel like that the 6 o'clock hour was a little bit late, and that at the earliest, now our contractor likes 5, and like every other contractor, when I was a contractor, if you tell me 4 is the start time, I'm going to be out there at 3:30. 3:15, depends on the day, right? So there's a little bit of that along the way that we've, come on, you guys are getting out a little early, that we attend to. But, there's a natural progression of things, and they're up and they go at it. But if you start at 5, you're going to really start around 4:30 a lot of the time because they're just going to be out there early. 4 is early. If you look at what communities around the nation do, depending on what region you're in, it matters, right? 4 in the Northeast is a little bit different than 4 down in Georgia in the summer. I can tell you that. But you get my point there. There's differences in region. So perhaps that 6 could be rolled back to a 5. Our contractor fears that there could be a headbutting with 6, whereby they are, of course, everybody knows the landfill, we close at 4:30. So there's a little bit, 4 really operationally to some extent. There's a little bit of a challenge in time there he feels like could be incurred. And he doesn't feel like, and it differs in the industry, lots of providers will go home in the evening and leave trash in that last truck and take care of it in the morning. Our contractor does not like doing that. So he likes to get them all dumped out. So his opinion was, hey, I don't have enough time. So that could be rolled back from 6 to 5, I think. But, and maybe we're just a little bit more precise if we do, because then the heat index hour is going to be 4, but we got to make sure perhaps that it is no earlier than 4, because certain citizens get disrupted at 3:30 in the morning when a beating and a banging is going on, as my grandfather would say. So there is that.
Okay, and I just want to close my comments. Thank you for listening to me. But I've also heard from them something that you mentioned, and I'll go back to citations. Right now in our ordinance for garbage and recycling, there are certain requirements for bagging and doing things in a certain manner that quite often are not done. And so then you wonder if it's the red open recycling bin, you mean that stuff blew away? Well, was it handled properly in the first place? So I do like the idea of what you mentioned, whoever the next one is, that maybe we periodically come back with a reminder to the public of just what is expected, how it to be done. But thank you for listening to me.
I believe we should. And it is very, very common that citizens put items in containers without being bagged. And that's tough, especially when it can be very tough and sometimes frustrating, right? Because the citizen forgets to put in the bag, so it's loose container. I get a call, they forgot me. I call my contractor, hey, you forgot 214, West George or whatever street. I need you to get over there. And over there he goes, and he calls me and says, it's loose, it's not in bags. He's in a pickup truck, so now he's got the outreach is a big deal. Okay, your comment though, well aimed as it is, and I feel that it is. We do enforce everything. But we enforce everything, and I'm talking about in the planning and zoning aspect, the planning department and the health department, as we call it right now. I'm looking for a new moniker there, but the codes enforcement, but it's complaint driven. It is complaint driven. So we enforce everything that we get a hold of on a complaint origination level. And I think in a future work session, we're going to look at code enforcement generally, and these conversations can hopefully be had in public. I don't want to drag on too long tonight, but it's complaint driven, and there's limitations to our effectiveness there. But I can tell you when we're out, our effectiveness on a canvassing level, when there's a complaint and we're there, that block is getting canvassed. That block you're at is getting canvassed, no matter who you are across the nation as a code enforcement officer. But you're right. And the point that you're making, it's a pretty marked statement, and it's pretty significant to put that in a DA with a contractor, because I think the biggest point you've made and the most important point you've made, all good points, is cost. Because all the changes that we've come up with are not anomalies, right? They exist in other communities, either individually, perhaps in pairs. I don't know if all of them exist together. And so anything you look at as a contractor, I know several of us have been in business and run companies and nonprofits. It matters. It matters. You're going to look at it and it's going to affect the cost. So we've got to be realistic in finality when we put this out and know that, number one, it's been 10 long years since we've looked at solid waste in our community. It is COLA, cost of living increases, right? This is going to be a more expensive adventure than we took last time on an RFP and a sanctioning level. And also some of the things that we want to see are going to have a cost attached to them that different contractors are going to place a different premium on, obviously. So I think that's one thing we have to look at. I would advise council that when we receive our bids, I'm certainly going to go back over the language in here and take those critiques earnestly to heart and kind of modify that just a little bit on the time. I think is a good one in some of that other language. And contingent upon that, I'd like permission to release the RFP tonight. And remember, this is an RFP, not a development agreement or not a memorandum of agreement, not a contract between us and anybody. So when we receive these RFPs, council has every right to look at those RFPs and turn down every single one of them and say, I want to see this to the RFP go back out, right? We always reserve that right as a community. So with this most important action, I think we should be prepared to actually do that. Maybe look at the possibility of that happening.
Well,
And,
Kevin, you have built into the schedule the July 9th meeting, which is a pre-proposal conference. So once they look at the RFP, you should get some feedback from the potential bidders.
That's exactly right.
And I think at that point, I would invite the council to sit in on that meeting and listen and see what they hear from the actual providers of the service. Because I think you're right, it's been 10 years and a lot of things have changed, both technology-wise and cost-wise.
Would Your Honor wish that that be a public meeting?
I think it'd be wise to do that.
I believe that's the consensus of the council as well. So it will be.
Okay.
Your Honor, can I make a comment to Kevin?
Sure.
Kevin, I just wanted to, on the contrary, thank you for this policy. I've looked at it. There's a lot of good changes here. And I think you use basically the only way of accumulating data that you can, which is public response. And I know over the years, Jody had a lot of responses and not so much complaints, but just feedback, from our providers. And I think it's important that when we say we hold citizens accountable, that doesn't exempt or hold sacrosanct our service providers. I think they also need to be held accountable to a list of rules. And I know, been more than one occasion, I've maybe repackaged something wrong or packaged something in the garbage can wrong. I get a citation, I get a note. And so I think this is a very responsible way that, not accusing any provider of failing to do their job. It's just setting up standards that I think every citizen deserves who pays to have this service, provided to them. So I think you did a great job. I think your staff did a great job. I like Bob's idea of having maybe a final bring to council overview so we can have some more feedback. That's a good idea. But all in all, I appreciate you listening to the citizens and bringing real change to the policy. I think it's going to make a big difference. So thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to say, and I'd like to thank Jody Gates for going through and doing this. It was a big deal to her, of course, having dealt with this program, with our services for so very long. She put a lot of effort and work into this, and I'd like to thank council members who've discussed it with me privately, certainly those council members, Bergen Stevens, who acted as representatives at our meetings. We just appreciate everybody's help and your patience.
Any other questions or comments? We have a motion on the floor, duly seconded. So if you're ready, we'll vote. Take the roll.
Councilmember Berg,
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby,
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe,
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens,
Yes.
Councilmember Myers.
No.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Resolution number 141, 2020, approving an advance of funds from the Road Use Tax Fund to the Sidewalk Program Fund 307. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 141, 2020.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Go ahead, Kayla.
Thank you. Good evening again. So I'm going to talk about Resolution 141 and 142 because they kind of go together. The first resolution, 141, is to approve the transfer from our road use tax to the sidewalk program fund. We have about $80,000 in expenses that have been completed on required ADA compliance for our sidewalk drop program. And we are eligible to use our road use tax to pay for these expenses. And so that's for the resolution 141 is to transfer the funds to cover those expenses for this fiscal year. Now, 142 is declaring an official intent for us to pursue borrowing funds in our CIP program in next fiscal year, which is our capital improvement program. Usually the sidewalk drop program is covered with our CIP program. However, in the last CIP issuance that was done a couple years ago, it was not included in that program. But again, we're required to do these improvements to the sidewalk program. And so we went ahead and did those. And so that's why we're asking for these two resolutions this evening.
Okay, so let's take them in order. Have a motion for resolution 141. Been made and seconded. Are there any questions for Kayla? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Berg,
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby,
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe,
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens,
Yes.
Councilmember Myers.
Yes.
Okay.
Resolution number 142, 2020, declaring an official intent under Treasury Regulation 1.150-2 to issue debt to reimburse the city for certain original expenditures paid in connection with specified projects. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 142, 2020.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Need to add anything additional? Any questions for Kayla? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Berg,
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby,
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe,
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens,
Yes.
Councilmember Myers.
Yes.
Thank you, Kayla.
Thank you.
Resolution number 148, 2020, approving change order number 1 and accepting the work as final and complete for the 2019 sidewalk drop and detectable warning installation program. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 148, 2020.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented, Your Honor.
Second.
Good evening, Dwight. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the 8th contract and consisted of the installation of sidewalk drops and detectable warnings at various locations throughout the city of Ottumwa. The completion of these sidewalk drops and detectable warnings will be a step towards compliance with the ADA transition plan. Change order number 1 consisted of a decrease of $3,098.27 in adjusted as-built quantities, which will bring the new contract sum to $128,576.73. DC Concrete in construction of Dallas, Iowa has completed the above referenced work according to the plans and specifications. This work will authorize payment and release of retainage.
Any questions for Dwight? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Berg,
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby,
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe,
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens,
Yes.
Councilmember Myers.
Yes.
Thank you.
Resolution number 149, 2020, authorizing the transfer of assets from City of Ottumwa to 1015 Regional Transit Agency effective July 1, 2020. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 149, 2020.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented, Your Honor.
Second.
And we'll turn this over to Phil.
Okay, so it's going to mention a little bit previously in the meeting, but just a reminder that the April 21st meeting, decision was made to transfer over the fixed route bus service to Region 1015 for the operation. As part of that agreement, called out the transfer of vehicles and then also a minimum of $407,000 was going to transfer from the transit fund over to Region 1015 to be able to continue the operation of the fixed route system in a seamless manner. Accordance with Iowa DOT and the federal program, they have a requirement to complete what they call a rolling stock status report. That was a sheet I handed out previously. That's the updated information. It's a list of the vehicles, if there's any federal dollars attached to them, the useful life of the vehicles based off of years, and mileage. And so that is a requirement whenever there's a transfer or a dissolution of any of the vehicles or assets. So this resolution authorizes the transfer of the vehicles officially. They need an official resolution stating that, and then this report along with it. 1015 will also have to pass a similar resolution that'll go to the state to help complete the transaction.
Any questions for Phil? Okay. Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Berg,
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby,
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe,
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens,
Yes.
Councilmember Myers.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ordinance number 3174, 2020, amending Chapter 31, Section 14 of the Municipal Code of the City of Ottumwa, Iowa, entitled Fees and Charges of Costs relative to sewer fees and charges by repealing Section 31-14 in its entirety and enacting a new Section 31-14 in lieu thereof. Recommendation pass and adopt ordinance number 3174, 2020.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Good evening again. Go ahead.
Again, this is the third reading for the ordinance change for our updated new sewer rates that will begin effective July 1st of 2020. And they will be used to fund operations of the plant, the debt service, and capital projects.
Any questions for Kayla? Would you, or can you give our audience at least a beginning? We're going to go from what, 1490 to 1565?
Yes, correct. It will probably affect a monthly bill on average about $3 a month. And we will be doing this for 3 years, but we will come back to council, I would say January, February timeframe, maybe, to give you guys an update on what the revenue changes and to make sure that we're still on track with the performa that was presented. A couple meetings ago, we had people present based on our CSO, our sewer separation project, that these funds will be needed for, and then also the financial report for the performa as to why we're needing to do the sewer rate adjustment at this time. And again, we have not had a change in our sewer rates since 2013.
Okay. Very good, thank you. Any questions for Kayla? Okay, hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Berg,
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby,
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe,
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens,
Yes.
Councilmember Myers.
Yeah, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Kayla. Item J on our agenda is a chance for the public to bring up any issue of city business. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to address the council? Okay, we'll move to item J, okay, excuse me. I do want to bring to the council's attention, just in case you get some communication, We did have a letter from Griner Implement about the purchase of the mower that they felt they had the lowest bid, but we gave the bid to Sinclair here in the city. Just wanted you to be aware of that. They felt they were overlooked, and I will respond to that letter, but I wanted you to be aware of that. We also had a parent who has raised some questions, and I think Dwight and I have communicated about a handicap parking space on Church Street, and we're going to have do some more research on that, but there are some complicating factors. I've talked with Larry Seals and Dwight about this. Just wanted you to be aware of it because she said she was going to contact council and also file a complaint with civil rights and ADA. And lastly, we do have a meeting tomorrow with the Bacon side of JBS. It's actually called Plum Rose, their Bacon division. And hopefully we'll get some information about how we can work with them in a community project, and we'll report back in the July meetings to the council on that. I think those are the main things that I can report to you. Is there any questions about anything? Any comments from council about any city business? Okay. And we've had no written comments or complaints to the clerk's office about the ordinance.
And I've received no
Okay. thank you.
complaints.
Okay, with that, if there's no other city business, I.
Excuse me, Mayor, I should have made a comment,
Sure.
and maybe you'll expand on it. But last Friday, JBS, in order to make all of the city and others more aware of what JBS has tried to do with COVID, they offered a couple of tours that some of us went on, and it was really impressive as to whether it's 4.3 million that has been spent locally to work with, how they can keep their employees safe and so forth. But that was really good.
Okay. Yeah, I think as a company, they, and I did talk with Joe Mock, the general manager. The emphasis was on protecting their employees and their people so they can continue to operate. And I know there's been concern about the COVID situation, but by no means are they the only business that's had to deal with that. And they have been very proactive, and they were very positive about their working relationship with the Wapello County Public Health and the Emergency Management Organization. So felt good about that. It was an impressive tour, and I know some people went today again too. So hopefully we can get out into the community that they are a responsible community partner and are trying to do the best they can under these unprecedented times and trials that we're all faced with. So thank you for reminding me of that, Bob. Anything further? If not, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Berg,
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby,
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe,
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens.
Yes.
Councilmember Myers.
Yes.
Thank you very much and good evening. It's 6:48.